Hi everyone, and welcome to our first shiur in Mitziyus. We're learning Gemara, Bava Metzia, second parak, the second chapter, and that's called Mitziyus. Now we're going to go through lesson number 9 in the introduction to Masechtas Bava Metzia. Now I really encourage all of you, either on now or watching the video afterwards, to go to my YouTube page. There are 2 videos called Introduction to Gemara. And I explain, the workbook starts from the beginning and explains how Gemara came about, what Torah Sheba'al Peh is, the oral Torah, how it came to be written down, because the Chachamim were beginning to forget. It went down from Rebbe to Talmud, from Moshe Rabbeinu to Yeshua, and on. And then in the time of Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi, Rebbe, where he was called Rebbe with love and affection because he was such a great Talmud Chacham, Rebbe began writing down the Gemara. There's a lot of details, and again, I gave 2 full classes on them, so I would appreciate it. For your sake, I think you'll benefit much, much more if you take the time. Again, go to my YouTube page, Yakov Horowitz, and just look up the 2 videos, do a search for Introduction to Gemara. So let's get going for the part that's actually relevant to Eilu Mitziyus and Bava Metzia. Now, this book was written by a very star Rebbe, a wonderful Rebbe named Rabbi Spivak, who was the Rebbe in our yeshiva, beginner Gemara Rebbe for many years. He's extremely creative, as you'll see, and he helps you understand the different parts of the Gemara, how the logic works. And he also created a whole group of questions, that homework questions of different sort, that can help you really understand the Gemara better. And we'll go over them as we go to help you better understand it. Okay, so I'm going to work my way through this. This is sort of these last 2 lessons. The green lessons are an introduction to Gemara. So especially for Bava Metzia, for Eilu Mitziyus, we have the this particular section. Okay, so we'll zoom in a little bit, and what we say, let's start. When we begin learning Gemara, okay, we're going to start learning Gemara soon. We're learning a Masechta. A Masechta is a book. The Shas is divided up into Siddharim. Again, you'll see that in the introduction to Gemara. Shas is divided up into Siddharim, orders that are very large and have general categories. This one is called Nazikin, or damages, and it deals with money matters between people. So Bava Metzia is a section of, is found, the Masechta, in other words, the book of Bava Metzia, is found in Seder Nazikin. And if you look at these things here, these names, Sanhedrin means a court, Makos is lashes that someone got, Shuas is swearing. So these are all parts of Nazikin. And what they did is, the actual damages, if you look at the number of prakim are chapters. You could see there were 11, some had 3, one had 3, one had 8. And the laws about damages between people and how money matters go was huge. So what they did is, here, let's explain. When Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi, when Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi was putting together Seder Nazikin, he started with a Masechta also called Nazikin, which had 30 prakim, and that was much too big for one Gemara. So Rebbe split it into 3 small Masechtas, each one with 10 prakim, and he called them, these smaller Masechtas, gates. Bava Kama, the first gate, Bava Metzia, is the middle gate, and the last one is called Bava Basra. So Kama is Hebrew is Aramaic for beginning first. Mitziyah is the middle, and Basra is Aramaic for last. Now, some people find it a little confusing because the word Mitziyah also means a lost object, but that's not what this means. That's why Rabbi Spivak took the time to mark this down. Okay, so this Nazikin here was divided up Okay, in order to help us better understand it, Nezikin was divided up into three parts: Bava Kama, Bava Mitziyah, the middle gate, and Bava Basra. We are going to be learning this one right here, the Bava Mitziyah. Okay, now we're not starting at the beginning of the Masechta. We're starting with the second parak, the second chapter, which starts on Daf Chaf Aleph, Amud Aleph. Again, that's also found in the introduction to Gemara. A daf is a two-sided page, and Amud is one side of the page. And in order to differentiate between them, if you see here, there's a little Chaf Aleph with that little dot. Look where the cursor is. That dot is its first side. That's Daf Chaf Aleph, page Chaf Aleph, side 1. Okay, in the Gemara, each parak has a name. The name of the parak is, in this case, it's Eilu Mitziyus, because it starts about lost objects. And this whole Gemara talks about what the halacha is if someone lost something. How does it work? At what point do you have to give it back? Chachamim were careful to guard people's property. So if someone had a lost object, if someone had what we call an aveda, something that was lost, then there were halachas, there were laws that governed, that decided how which lost objects they were allowed to keep and which lost objects they had to return. Okay, I'm going back to Rebbe's text here. So Rebbe says, let's go back to the text. Okay, Perek Eilu Mitziyus discusses the halachas, the law of what a person must do when he finds something someone else lost. Okay, so in short, the topic of our parak is about found objects. Okay, something that someone lost is called an aveda. The plural is avedais, something that's lost. And something that someone found is called a mitziyah. Mitziyah means to find, and mitziyos is the plural of that. Now, how do we decide if a person can keep something that was lost or not? So, and this is going to be the main discussion of Yiush Shalom Mida'as, and we'll explain the term, what that means as we go on. So, when someone finds something that someone else lost, there are times that he can keep it, and we say those mitziyos are shaloi, belong to him, the finder. And there are other times when he must announce what he found so that the owner can claim it. The halacha for those mitziyos are called chayev lahachres. So these two words, chayev lahachres, means that he is responsible to announce it. Chayev lahachres, he's responsible to announce that that he found something and somebody should look for it. We're going to find out later how he made sure that it was the rightful owner. So we'll get to that a little bit later. Okay, so he would, shalai here means that it belongs to him, meaning the finder, and chayev lahachres means that he has to announce it. Okay, and Rebbe explains the two here. So these two illustrations show the difference between shalai and chayev lahachres. So we say, if I found an object, I'm allowed to keep it, we consider it shalai, his, and it's really going from the perspective, from the side of the person who found it, okay? And chayev lahachres, I found an object, whoever lost it, come speak to me. Now, so again, these are the building blocks of the information that we're going to need to be able to get into the Gemara and to discuss the Yiush Mida'as. Now, the thing that determines whether or not a person, again, just follow the cursor here, this plus sign, we're going to follow where we're up to. So the thing that determines whether or not a person may keep the mitziyah, the found object, is if the owner has given up hope of getting it back. Okay, and we call giving up hope is called Yiush. That's a very important word that we're going to be using completely throughout the Gemara. So giving up hope is called Yiush. Yiush means he gave up hope. And that's a noun. And when we say it as an action word and a verb, when a person has given up hope, we say he was miyayish. Okay, yiush, the root word means to give up hope. And miyayish is an action of giving up hope. So if the owner has been miyayish on his aveda before the other person even found it, if the person gave up and he just said, there's no way, I'm never going to find this, I give up. So the finder is allowed to keep it, okay? And what we call that, remember we just said before, that's called shalai, right? But this side on the left, this guy's smiling a little more, okay? And so this shalai means if he found something and the owner gave up hope of ever getting it back, we refer to that as shalai, that belongs to him. And if he found it and he didn't, if the person did not give up hope, if the owner was miyayish, he can keep it. If, however, when the finder finds the object, the owner still has hope of getting it back, meaning he was not miyayish, then the finder cannot keep it. Instead, the finder must announce what he found so the owner can claim it. Okay, so he gets up, he says, I lost my object and I know that I will never get it back. This is the owner. So he is miyayish. The miyayish is a verb, meaning he gave up hope. And if he says, I lost my object, but I'll try to get it back, he is not miyayish, and therefore we have a ruling, a halacha of chayev lahachris, that he has to announce the lost object. Okay, let's continue now. So by now, I'll review in a moment, but by now, you might be wondering how the finder can possibly know if the owner gave up hope, right? He didn't see the owner, right? So Rabbi Spivak's asking a good question. If he doesn't know who lost it, how can he interview the guy and find out if he gave up hope? After all, he doesn't even know who the owner is. The answer to the question is that if it seems reasonable for the owner to get it back, then you assume that he was not miyayish, and we'll see some categories. However, if it's not likely that he'll get it back, we can assume that he gave up hope, and then a finder can keep the object. Okay, and Rebbe's going to give some examples. So imagine if you found a notebook in the lunchroom. You look at it, and you see that the owner drew a picture of the Sefer Torah on the cover. Okay, he has a notebook with the Sefer Torah on the cover. Okay, so here, you see that one here? So he has, we call that a siman, a sign. So it's not, he won't, when a person makes a sign like that, it's much easier to identify it, to show that it's his. Because when the person finds it, he'll know that it belongs to a particular person who made a sign on it. So this picture is a unique sign to show that it's his, and that is called a siman. In this case, the owner will not be miyayish. He won't give up hope because he knows that he has a marking. Siman is a marking that he can give to the finder. In other words, if the guy announces, I found something, I found a notebook, and he said, give me a siman, is there any way you can identify that it's yours and you're not just a thief that wants to take it for nothing? That's not yours. So he'll say, sure, it has a blue cover and there's a picture of a Sefer Torah on it. Okay, so therefore that is called a siman, and the owner won't be miyayish. So the halacha is he would be chayev lahachris. He has to announce it because since the owner did not give up hope, this is the guy who lost it. This is the fellow without the beard who found it. That's just by an identifying symbol. Okay, so right, just doesn't have to be this way, of course. But the one who found it is looks a little younger, doesn't have a beard, and he says. He wants to know if he's allowed to keep it shalai or chayev. He is obligated lehachriz to announce it. So we want to check if he is miyayish. So if there's no siman on it, if there's no identifying sign, so in all likelihood he'll give up hope. If he gives up hope, the other fellow's allowed to keep it. And in this case, where there was a marking on it, it was a siman with the Sefer Torah on it, the picture of the Sefer Torah. So therefore, he has to announce it because we assume that the guy, the owner of the object still has hope of getting it back. Okay? The halacha would be different Rebbe continues, if you found a plain black pen, the type you buy in a pack of 12 on the sidewalk, the pen has no name and no markings. Since it's so common, the person has no way of proving, and he will probably be miyayish. Okay, you see the guy says here, bearded guy is the loser, not loser, God forbid. The person who lost the object says, I lost the pen, it had no siman, I don't think I'll ever be able to get it back. And then he says, well, the finder says, this guy finds it, he says, look, there's no siman on it, so the guy was miyayish, gave up hope, so I can keep it. Okay? However, let's continue. There are times when a person will be miyayish even if he does have a siman. Even if he has something with his name on it, so there are many, many circumstances that will make a difference whether or not a person will be miyayish. Imagine that you had a nice pair of headphones. On the side of the headphones, you painted a blue stripe. Okay? So you see here, right, the whole thing is gray, and right, we drew this, that having a blue stripe here. Oops. Moment. So that blue stripe is what we call an identifying marking, and in Hebrew, it's called a siman. Okay, so the person found, here we go. Okay, so the person found an object, here we go. So he has a blue stripe here. He has a blue stripe in the headphones right here. So the guy says, normally, if it was on a quiet street, or if he lost it in a room that has 10, 20 people in it, then he'll hope to get it back. But here he says he might have it in Manhattan. It could have been in a place with millions of people or hundreds or thousands of people. So he just gives up hope right away. He says, even though I have a marking on it, I'm miyayish because there's no way I'm ever going to get this back. Okay, so therefore he says, in this case, he's miyayish. The one who lost it, again, says, I lost my headphones in a crowded city. Even though it had a siman, I'll never get it back. And when the finder picks it up, he says, I see that there's a siman on it. I see there's a marking, a blue marking, but this guy's never going to be able. He gave up hope already, because what are the odds that he's going to go back to a busy street, even if he knows what block it fell on? By then, people will trample it. Somebody else might have taken it. So he gave up hope. Therefore, the person's allowed to keep it. Okay, so these are the basic rules. And it's really logical. Again, it's pretty logical. It follows the laws of how a person would be thinking. And in this case, because he was thinking, because he was thinking that he won't get it back in a busy area, then he gives up hope. Okay? So will he be the type of person who's interested now? So it's much more probable that he'll be happy to keep the headphones for himself. And even if he does want to return them, how's he going to announce it to the whole city? So therefore, the person almost certainly was miyayish, because the chances of getting it back are really not good, and the finder can keep the headphones. Okay, so we have an important point here. Yiush, giving up hope, is the thing that determines whether a Mitziyah is shalai, a Mitziyah, a found object, belongs to the finder, or if the finder is chayiv lahachres, has to announce it. It is not the siman that determines this. In some cases, we say that the marking on it, the siman, is what decides whether or not someone is allowed to keep it. But that's not really true, because if you have a siman, like we learned before, in a very crowded space, you're still going to be responsible to announce it. Okay? Now that we have some of the basic terms and rules about Mitziyus, we can learn the Mishnah for the next lesson. So we're actually going to learn the Mishnah, and this is lesson 10, and then we're going to get right to the Gemara, okay? Because the Gemara, the beginning of the regular lessons that are in a color blue, that starts from the beginning of the Gemara, okay? So as we explained, the Gemara discusses, this Perek discusses the halachas that were taught in the Mishnah. And before we begin the Gemara, we're going to learn the Mishnah of this topic. And the Mishnah says like this: Eilu Mitziyus Shalai. Here are the Mitziyus. And here's, you see on this side, this is going to be like this throughout the book, throughout this workbook, that you'll have this translation on the far side, and we'll see later that, well, we'll get to the next line, what those brackets mean, what those like square parentheses are, they're called brackets. So Eilu Mitziyus, Eilu is these are found objects, Shalai, that are his, right? And again, these brackets mean not a translation of the word, but rather a continuation of what he really meant to say. So Shalai, they're his, didn't mean that he owned it in the first place, but now he is allowed to keep it. The Eilu, and these, again, found objects, right? Chayav lahachris, he's obligated to announce. And now the Mishnah says there are two types of found objects. The first list will be the type found that one can keep. And the list the Mishnah starts the parak with, then the Mishnah will give a list of found objects which must be announced. However, that list we won't go over that until the next Mishnah, which is almost 4 pages of Gemara. Dafim is plural of a daf, of a two-sided page. Now the Mishnah has the list. Eilu Mitziyus Shalai, these are found objects that are his to keep. Eilu Mitziyus, these found objects, Shalai belongs to him. Matzah, if he found Peiros Mifuzarin, number one is Peiros, fruits, or anything that grows in the ground, and Mifuzarim means it's spread out, okay? And if it's spread out, first of all, people are less likely to take it because they have a lot of work to do. And it also looks like it was lost, because if a person just put it down because he didn't have room and he wanted to come back and get it later, he would have made a nice little pile out of it. Okay, so the produce, that means the Mishnah was using produce, the word is peiros. Usually we say fruit, but here it means kernels of grain, because it's fruit of the grain plant. The Mishnah says that if someone found kernels of grain on the ground, he can keep it for himself. And the Gemara is going to discuss all of these situations. So ma'ais mefuzarim, money that is scattered, the same thing, right? If it's all over the ground, again, it looks like it was lost, and somebody is not likely to pick it up because it's more work to collect the coins. So if someone found coins scattered on the ground, you may keep them. This is because there's no siman on the coins themselves. Also, because the coins were scattered, there's no siman, marking in the way they were arranged. Therefore, the owner will be mi'ayish, will give up hope. And I'm going to translate the Aramaic and Hebrew words. Later on, when the Mishnah talks about what types of things you have to give back, that would be if he arranged the coins like a tower. A tower means, it's really like a teepee. So if you put, let's say in America, we have a quarter, and then he put a nickel and then a dime, so that would be in size order. So he could say that that's a siman, even though the money doesn't have a siman. That would be another way. If you found money piled up like that, you wouldn't think that someone lost it. You would think that he put it down. So in that case, he's not mi'ayish. Bundles of grain, bundles of grain. Here, right here, you see them, those sheaves they're called, right? Those bundles of grain together in Rosh Hashanah in a public area. The term Rosh Hashanah, translated as public domain, refers to any place where anyone may go without needing permission. So it's the street, the sidewalk. So if the bundles of grain are found there, the finder could keep them. Even though there might be a siman on it, let's say he tied it a certain way, but the owner will assume that since it's in a public space, somebody's going to trample on it and he'll give up hope. Igule devela, eagle is a circle, okay, and devela are figs that were pressed. So here, when figs were grown in order to sell them, it was common to press them into round, flat discs, and they would be packaged and sold. You can see them in the supermarket today, right? So since everybody makes it like that, there's no siman, so it'll be mi'ayish. In other words, if he made this, let's say, in a triangle shape, so that would be unusual. Or let's say he strung them out, or he made a rectangle, or whatever, a Magen David. He made a different type of shape, then perhaps you would say that there's a siman because he's not miyayish, because he'll announce, hey, anybody find figs? I left a pile of pressed figs and they were shaped in a funny shape, and I'll tell you what they are if you come to me. So someone will come and say, yes, I found something in an unusual shape. What was it? I'll say it was a triangle. He'll get it back. So he's not going to be miyayish. You see, these are basically the same big idea. The big idea is that something that's in a public space, and it's something that really doesn't have an identifying sign. Again, all of those things mean that the owner is going to be miyayish, give up hope. Kikara shel nachtam, bread of a baker. A baker means it was made in a bakery for the public. So the baker makes 100 loaves of bread, they all look the same. Or he's making pita or something. But if your mom makes challah, then she's going to make her challah, it'll look much more individualized. So the opposite of that would be bread that a private person made. Okay? The chaticha shel basar, and cut pieces of meat, right? Strings of macharazas shel dagim, the strings of fish, the chatichas, they usually used to string them together. They actually still do this today. And chatichas shel basar are pieces of meat. Strings of fish all look the same, even though there's different types of meat. They're pretty similar. So all rib steaks, all briskets look the same, even if it's not from the same animal. So the owner will be miyayish. V'gizei tzemer, and shearings of wool, ha-lekuchen mimidasan, that were brought from their country. Okay, wool is the fur of a sheep. Cutting the wool off the sheep is called shearing. And after the wool is sheared, it's made into a bundle. And every country had a special way of bundling wool. But within the country, it looked the same. This is just a bundle of fluffy wool. Okay, if someone finds wool that's bundled and has not been processed, it looks like it came from that country. So you'd say, this looks like wool from France or from Argentina. But since they all look the same there, that's not considered a siman. They spun them into threads called linen. Before they spun them, they would make them into bundles. Again, the owner would give up hope because it's the same. Ulashinas shel argaman, and tongues of argaman is purple wool. Wool that was processed, they left them into strips. They made strips out of them, and they were called tongues. So those would all be, every one of those in the above, all those 10 categories, let's go over them. You know what, let's go over them quickly. And again, the details here are really about it. So if you had to describe one word that would explain all of this, if you had to find one, well, what do these things have in common? They're all different types of things. You would say all of these look the same, and therefore the owner doesn't have much of a chance of getting it back. Okay, so we had scattered fruit in the peiros. In this case, it was grain, money that was scattered, bundles of unidentifiable stalks in a public in a public domain. Igulei tfela were pressed figs. Remember, they did them all in a circle. Kikarais shel nachtam, a baker's bread. Again, they all made them the same. Strings of fish, macharazas shel dagim, chaticha shel basar, pieces of flesh, of meat. The gizei tzemer, and shearings of wool, halakuchem mimidinasim, that came from their country, and in that country everybody did everything the same. V'anitze pishtan, and bundles of flax. Ulashaina shel agaman, and pieces, tongues, like it was, you see, it looks, they stretched them out like that. Shel agaman, of purple wool. Harei elu shaloi. All of these things are his. Divrei Rabbi Meir, these are the words of Rabbi Meir. So Rabbi Meir teaches us that these 10 Mitziyus and others like them may be kept by the finder because they have no siman. Now, if you remember, when Rebbe gave an example earlier of having a pen, right? Rebbe gave an example of having a black pen that comes in a bag with 11 other pens. They're sold by the dozen or 10 or 20 at a time, so nobody will ever have hope of getting it back because nobody's going to be able to identify it. So all of those things are like that. Rabbi Yehuda says that, even those type of Mitziyus may have a siman in certain circumstances. Rabbi Yehuda says, Kol sheyesh by shinoi, he might not be, either he's arguing or clarifying. It looks like he's just explaining what Rabbi Meir said, that it doesn't mean it's always his. So Rabbi Yehuda puts like a little asterisk there, a little sign, and it says, no, only if there's nothing unusual there. Kol sheyesh by shinoi, any found object that has something unusual in it, chayav lachas, the finder, again, the bracket, is obligated to announce. Kate said, how is that? Matzah eagle, if he found a circle of figs, of pressed figs, cheres, and there was a piece of pottery inside, kikar, or a loaf of bread, ma'is, and he put money in there, those are certainly very unusual, and therefore he would be obligated to announce it. Okay, so Rabbi Yehuda teaches if a common item has something uncommon, like pottery and coins, they have to be announced. The cases Rabbi Yehuda lists seem so unusual that they certainly seem to have a siman. It's hard to imagine why Rabbi Meir argues. The Gemara will explain exactly what Rabbi Meir is arguing about, but we're not going to do this for now. And finally, Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, the Mishnah ends with one more halacha. Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar says, Kol clay anpuria, all vessels, all kalim that are anpuria, the Gemara, actually, this doesn't happen often, but there's going to be a discussion in the Gemara exactly what anpuria means, so we have to hang in there until we get to the Gemara. So Kol kli anpuria, any utensil, leave that blank, whatever anpuria means, ein chayav lahachris, he doesn't have to announce. Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar teaches us that when a person finds a keli which is anpuria, he will keep it. If you're wondering what it means, the anpuria, you're not alone. However, you'll have to once again be patient and wait for the Gemara to explain the term. Now that we learned the Mishnah, we can review it again, and knowing this Mishnah well is really going to help, because we're learning the same topic in Yiush Shalom Mida'as. Since we're talking about Yiush this much, about lost objects, this Mishnah, remembering this Mishnah, just so you might want to review it again once or twice. I'll go over the second part again. We did all these 10 types of Mitziyus, but I'll review this again. Rabbi Yehuda says, this is what Rabbi Meir says. Rabbi Yehuda says, well, if there's something different about it, you have to announce it. In other words, if somebody found a shard of pottery right here in a round thing of figs, or he found a bread with money in it, they would have to announce it. And Rabbi Shimon Elazar says something that we don't know exactly what it means, called kli anpuria, that chayav lahachres, that you have to announce it. This concludes the Mishnah. And B'li Neder, in our next year, we're going to discuss, we're going to go to the next topic and jump right in to the sugya, to the topic of Yiush Shalom Mida'as, Shalom Mida'as. Okay, I hope you enjoyed our shiur, and we'll see you next time. Okay, review the Mishnah if you can, and we'll get to it when we start the second shiur. Have a great day.